Every single day in the Hampton Roads area of southeastern Virginia, you hear about numerous killings. So far this year alone, there has been 17 homicides across the 7 cities of Hampton, Newport News, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Portsmouth, Chesapeake, and Suffolk. 17 homicides is up from 12 homicides at this time last year. Many of the killings that happened in this area could be avoided if people would stop being so caught up in their materialistic ways and start thinking and act like Buddha taught. If Americans would accept the many different races, religions, and ethnicities that occupy our great country, then America would once again become the greatest country in the world. I believe that the general attitude in the Hampton Roads area would change for the better if the citizens of the region would seek the same lifestyle that Buddha was trying to achieve, the lifestyle of total enlightenment and nirvana. During Buddha's quest to reach total enlightenment, he realized through meditation that everything in the natural world was connected, and that compassion connects oneself to a world already broken and suffering. This can be related to the society of the Hampton Roads area because the compassion that some have for what they believe in is directly related to the pain and suffering that is going on in the streets of Hampton Roads. The Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path to Enlightenment were the basis of all of Buddha's teachings. The first Noble Truth states that life inevitably involves suffering, dissatisfaction, and distress. This means that the suffering that Virginians deal with encompasses those day-to-day situations that everyone goes through. The second Noble Truth states that suffering is caused by craving. Because the citizens of Hampton Roads are craving for the perfect community with no hate, stealing, and killing, the entire region is suffering. Because there is such a strong military footprint in the area, there are people from all walks of life, all with different upbringings and different standards in the way they live their life. Not all the homicides that happen in Hampton Roads deal with military members, but most do. Buddha taught that through the Noble Eightfold Path to Enlightenment, that he was the raft to take us to the farther side. In layman's terms, if Virginians would just let it go and accept everyone for who they are and what they believe in, much of the hate and discontent that is present in the current Hampton Roads society would fall to the wayside, and the overall way of life would improve. All aspects of Siddhartha's teachings teach his followers to forgive and forget. The teachings of Siddhartha lay out the blueprint for Virginians to stop suffering and could ultimately put an end to the senseless crime that is corrupting the 7 cities.
Hello, fellow classmates and Professor Myers. For the past 2 months, we have been studying religions of the world and how they affect cultures and societies at the base level, people themselves. For our final project, my group has chosen Buddhism and peace and security and how it relates to that. So how does this apply to modern society? How can it be beneficial to the places that we personally live in? Buddhism is a peaceful religion. Some don't even consider it religion, but more of a spirituality, a personal thing that you have with yourself. I am currently living in Europe, and if you have turned on the TV at any point in time the last few months, you probably know that that Eurasia is in a state of constant insecurity. Terrorism is on the rise everywhere you look. Constantly, there's attacks, there's bombings, you name it. So how could Buddhistic teachings be of use to Europe during this time? How could it be applied to peace and security? Well, I think it has a lot to do with it. First off, the Buddhism is based off of the Four Noble Truths, and that is life has suffering. No matter what you do, there's going to be suffering in life. The cause of suffering is our attachment to our feelings, to our pride, to all those things. That's what's going to cause suffering. It's going to lead to why people might attack and cause suffering for others. Suffering ceases when the attachment is released. So you give up that attachment, suffering can cease in the world. And freedom from suffering is possible by following the Eightfold Path. I'm not going to get into the Eightfold Path today because that could go on for a very long time. I just want to talk about how with Buddhism and the society that we have now, it could be applied to peace and security, because if we don't have attachment and we just live off the basis that Buddhism is peace, you do unto others, that's more of Taoism. But if you live with peace, give up attachment, look in yourselves, don't harm anyone, that's one of the Eightfold Paths, let your career or what you do for your life not bring harm to others. I think that could do a lot with peace in modern society, obviously. So, if you look at what drives most terrorist attacks or general issues with government and society today, the root of it is going to be attachment, others, instead of punishment and fear of death, pushing people away from each other. Security measures could be cut back on because there'd be more trust, there'd be more world peace, there'd be less attachment to everything, to materialisticness. You wouldn't have to defend as much material, because that's what a lot of wars are on. Defending your materials, defending your resources, defending your money. But if people didn't have so much attachment to everything, and we didn't have so much attachment to materialistic objects, which is the companies and which is destroying the rainforest, destroying all of the world, basically, they would cut back on it because they don't need to make so much money by being cheap and hurting the earth. Instead, that wouldn't be the focus anymore. So, cut back on that, blah, blah, that's what I said. But it would be peaceful for people. They wouldn't be as afraid of terrorism because we would no longer have to drive to take over, to destroy, and all these things, as I already said. So the need to get back at others and society and attachment to grudges would also cease. Because a lot of times you look in society, it is a grudge. It's attachment to a grudge, to your pride, that drives this terrorism, that drives the society and drives the security, why we had to have it, because people are attached to these ideals and objects that might not be realistic, and they've been around for hundreds of years, but they don't make sense anymore, and that you can see a lot in the Middle East. So, and I see suffering in all those that I have encountered, and it's because they are so attached to these things, these ideas, that don't need to be there. So Buddhism says your suffering is coming from that attachment. And if we let it go, there'd be a lot more peace, because you wouldn't be as attached to your anger, to what you consider right. You'd be more open-minded. So then that wouldn't drive as much terrorism. You wouldn't be attached to materialistic objects. You wouldn't be attached to money. Money is obviously a huge driver behind terrorism, behind wars, and peace could come out of not being attached. So if you look at the basis of it, that's what drives most wars. So I'm Rebecca Grace Long, and this has been my final group project for Buddhism relating to peace and security for my college course, Introduction to World Religions.
When someone thinks of crime in California, hotspots such as Oakland, Compton, and Inglewood would likely come to mind. However, those are just the most publicized ones. Emeryville, where I currently live, is a small neighborhood next to the Bay Bridge that crosses over into San Francisco and is adjacent to the cities of Oakland and Berkeley. According to NeighborhoodScout.com, the population of Emeryville is 11,694 people, not very big. The median household income is listed at $77,806, which is more than the national median of $53,889. Much of the city's housing are made up of apartments and duplexes, which has also experienced some of the highest appreciation rates. At 30.59% over the last 10 years and 14.29% over the last 12 months, Emeryville's latest annual appreciation rate is higher than 90% of other cities and towns in California and 98.42% on a national scale. However, everything is not as great as it sounds. Compared to how small Emeryville is, its crime numbers are fit for much bigger cities. According to Rob Arias of the E-Ville Eye, last month in March, there were 234 total crimes reported, which is up 10% from February's number of 212. Despite this, residential burglaries are down when compared to the same time last year. However, auto burglaries are on the rise, up 96% from March last year. Per Neighborhood Scout, I have a 1 in 76 chance of becoming a victim of violent crime and a 1 in 6 chance for property crimes. A 2013 FBI report on crime ranks Oakland as having the highest crime numbers in the Bay Area, but its next-door neighbor, Emeryville, ranks number 2. However, in 2014, news channel KPIX5 CBS reported that much of the crime may be imported. A list acquired by the station showed that out of all 729 persons arrested in Emeryville during the previous year, 67% were Oakland residents. Also, although there were 154 violent crimes reported in the last year, crime reports indicate there has only been 2 known homicides within city limits since the beginning of 2013. I believe that Buddhism could turn crime upside down, not only in Emeryville, but its crime-ridden neighbors Oakland and Richmond as well. Following the aspects of the Noble Eightfold Path selfish desire would decrease and ethical conduct would increase. Therefore, peace and security would increase substantially as well. Since theft, burglaries, and violence are much of crimes taking place within Emeryville, the city would see a sharp decline in overall crime numbers. I believe that peace and security would become a solidified commodity, as not only crime but other issues such as homelessness, unemployment, and inequality would decrease as well.